Everyone. Good morning to all. Please feel free to greet everyone in your own local languages using the chat box. May we see some of your greetings in your local language. Yes, please just put them in the chat box. Good morning. Magandang umaga, masayang buhay. Yes, we have participants from all over. Okay, from Pangasinan, Tarlac, Batasan Hills, Dinagat Islands. Yeah, Robbie, I see you there. Okay, everyone else. I'm sorry, we do not have the time. But we see all your greetings here. Anyone in your local language? Yes, naimbag na adlaw. Kinayo amin. Maayong aga po, maayong buntag sa tanan. Masantos, ya kabiwasan, kayo namin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third of the 3 webinars in this series brought to you by the Ateneo Center for English Language Teaching and the Department of Education. So allow me to express our gratitude to the Department of Education Secretary Sonny Angara, Undersecretary Dr. Wilfredo Cabral, Assistant Secretary, our very own, Dr. Carmela Oracion, and the National Educators Academy of the Philippines, through the leadership of Director Dr. Jennifer Lopez, for their support. This webinar series is part of ACELT's mission to upgrade the standards in English language and literature education in the country and its neighboring countries by providing basic and higher education teachers, teacher trainers, and educational and school leaders with programs that are based on contextualized approaches to English language teaching, which are anchored on current pedagogical issues and developments in the use of English in the country and the region. This last webinar in this series focuses on teaching strategies in multilingual English language learners for Key Stage 3. For this webinar, we have the following objectives. We hope that everyone will engage in a conversation on evidence-based teaching techniques that will help develop students' multiliteracies as they navigate different text types, media, and modalities. We'll also discuss genre-based pedagogy and develop metalinguistic awareness through translanguaging. And this session, of course, is designed to help Key Stage 3 teachers design engaging lessons that foster students' capacity to analyze, evaluate, and create texts for a range of audiences, purposes, and contexts. I am Cecilia Suarez, or Cheche, Executive Director of the Ateneo Center for English Language Teaching, or ACELT. I'm your moderator and also a panel member in today's webinar. With me are 3 well-respected educators and scholars in the country. I will introduce each of them before their respective turns. Our first panel member and resource speaker is full professor designated at the College of Advanced Studies of the Philippine Normal University, Manila, Dr. Mary Ruth Morauda Gutierrez. She is a senior faculty serving as program lead in graduate reading education. She is a consultant and resource speaker of DepEd's Bureau of Curriculum Development for the National Reading Program and for the Matatag English Language Curriculum. She served PNU as head of Center for Reading and Literacy, Director of Graduate Research Office and Graduate College Representative to University Curriculum Management and Instructional Materials Office under the leadership of Vice President for Academics. Please, everyone, help me welcome Dr. Mary Ruth Gutierrez.
Good morning
Ruth?
po. Yes, thank you,
Morning.
Dr. Everyone, kumusta?
Mabuti naman po. Excited kami to listen to you, Doc Ruth.
Yes. Hello, Ma'am Che. Is it my turn now?
Yes, please. Doc Ruth?
Yes,
Go
thank
ahead,
you.
please.
Thank you, Doctor, and everyone. We're all excited to have this last in the series of our webinar on multilingual English language classroom and strategies for teaching our children, our students. May I request Dr. Ma'am Ayet, please, to share my screen. My connection is not that strong, and I'm currently in the office, so I'm at the office. I cannot have a very strong connection. Let me start. Ma'am Ayet. Given 15 minutes maximum, I am to give an overview of the English language curriculum focused on Key Stage 3. This is but a review because on the first meeting, you saw the overall design and based on the shaping paper of the English language arts curriculum. Ma'am Ayet?
Yes, ma'am. Sharing na po.
Sharing na, okay.
Yes po.
Next slide, please. Okay. My task is to talk about the curriculum for English language curriculum, Key Stage 3. Next slide. My outline is, it has only 4, given 15 minutes. We will just review of language arts conceptual framework. You remember LLT, hopefully. Literacy, language, text is the big ideas, the organizing principles of the language arts curriculum. And then we focus on KS3, which is about the text. Of the 3 big ideas, this time we talk about text, which is, it could be oral, written, multimodal, multimedia text, and we shall define a text as from the curriculum. And then I will end by telling you the kinds of texts we expect our students to produce and to compose. And these are literary, informational, academic, and transactional. So let's review. Okay, you're familiar with this one. There are 3 big ideas found in the language arts curriculum. Central here is literacy. Then we have language and text. We call them big ideas. They are our permanent skills as against enabling skills. For each stage, one big idea is a focus, is a permanent skill. The rest would serve as enabling skill. Yet in the end, all throughout the curriculum, all these 3, literacy, language, and text, are enabling, now they shift to permanent skills because we have given them adequate, sufficient instruction so that they can perform expectations of our society. Now, literacy, language, and text. Next, central to this is meaning making. We make meaning using language, reading a text, using our literacy skills. Then, how do we apply? What's the context of applying all these big ideas? The context and the expanding identities as organizing idea of the curriculum emanates from personal, regional, that's why it's called expanding identities, national, continental, and then global. If you can see, this is organized from inside out. Inside, personal, moving outside a bit, regional, national, continental, global. Personal, for Key Stage 1, would be the context of discussion, where the 3 big ideas have a role interacting for mastery and language skills. Then for Key Stage 2, we have regional and national context, expanding identity from personal to this, and moving on, Key Stage 3, continental to global. This believes that before we go out, we need to look inside first. So Key Stage 1 up to Key Stage 3. This is called the expanding identities and context that the curriculum wants to offer our students. Next. Okay. So this one, you have already seen this. We are done with key stage 1, that's kinder to 3. The focus is on language. Key stage 2, key stage 1, the focus is on literacy. Grades 4 to 6, key stage 2, the focus is on language. And now key stage 3, the focus is on text. The kind of reader we have for grade 7 to 10, they should be abstract readers and therefore can be writers. Okay, what do I mean by this? Literacy is very much the focus. That's the permanent skill that we want to teach our key stage 1 learners. Yet, this skill is enabled by language and text understanding. Now, when we go to second stage, we shift the focus. Again, these are the 3 big ideas, but we shift focus depending on the key stage. Second stage, the focus now, meaning focus, the permanent skill that we want our learners to gain is language, central. In learning here is language, enabled by literacy and text. And now, grade 7 to 10, key stage 3, the focus, meaning the permanent skill that we want them to learn, is on text, particularly constructing, composing, creating texts. Okay, so again, at the end of grade 10, all these big ideas become permanent skills to our learners. The shift is one serves as permanent in one key stage, the rest as enabling. Then shift, now for third stage, text is the focus. Next. So, when the curriculum defined text as written, spoken, or multimodal forms of communication used in meaningful contexts. These are the different forms. Next. Multimodal texts combine language with other systems for communicating. For example, they use print with visual images, animation, soundtracks, spoken word, as in film or computer presentation media. Okay, that makes it multimedia when you package it to determine how you will transmit the multimodal text that you have produced. What makes it multimedia? The combination of print, graphics, sound, animation, video put together. And if you package all this and you use a platform for sharing this multimodal text, this becomes a multimedia text. So there's a very thin line between multimodal and multimedia texts. A multimodal may be multimedia, but multimedia is always multimodal text. But a multimodal may not necessarily be multimedia. Okay, and we expect our students to produce such. Again, how do we define a text? Oral, written, spoken, multimodal, multimedia. Am I yet, please? So many of the tasks that learners undertake in and out of school involve literary text, informational text, and transactional text. Now, these are the types that we will be teaching, and our students should be able to produce and create at the end of Key Stage 3. Okay, again, from the curriculum, the Key Stage 3 standards. Our students should critically evaluate, create, and publish a variety of texts. This is the focus of our instruction now. How do they evaluate critically? How do they create? What are the means to publish their output, which could be spoken, written, multimodal, to express their ideas, concepts, and meaning. Therefore, so from They will be learning this from developmentally and grade level appropriate themes or topics. Again, what topics, what themes? Anchored on personal, moving on to regional, national, continental, and global context of discussion. For Key Stage 3, the curriculum recommends an exposure of 70% informational, transactional, academic text, and 30% narrative only, which is a representative of literary texts. Okay, this is recommended in the curriculum. Therefore, those learning competencies that support text evaluation, internal, external, production, and publishing using the learner's literacy skills and communicative skills are the focus of instruction in this key stage. Let's take note of these phases. First, they must know how to evaluate. And if they know how to evaluate, they must apply and learn to produce. Production is not the end of our expectation for third stage. They must also be able to publish. What is produced may not necessarily be published. So the end here is they be able to share and publish their own text creation. By the end of grade 10, they can critically analyze and evaluate the style, form, and features of literary. So ito ang nilalaman ng ating macroscope and sequence, no? How these broad skills may be broken down into sessions in our plan, and features of literary, informational, which could be non-journalistic, journalistic, and academic text, and transactional texts. So they should be able to compose and publish a range of multimedia texts for a variety of meanings, purposes, and audiences, including learning in other content areas. Oh, you might be telling us this is a bit high, but if we have implemented the curriculum true to its intention, this is possible. If you go back to Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 1, adhering to what is written and how it
For the
is
information of
delivered.
our flight passengers on Philippine Airlines. Ang flight
Ma'am Ru, you're on mute po.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so may I repeat, they are able to compose and publish a range of multimedia texts for a variety of meanings, purposes, and audiences, including learning in other content areas. For you, it might be high, but if we remain true to Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 intents and purposes, they have been enabled to achieve this in Key Stage 3. Next slide, please. Okay, so what kinds of texts do we expect our students to produce? In Key Stage 3, they should be able to produce and publish literary texts, informational texts, academic texts, and transactional texts. The last discussion would be samples of these types of texts that we expect our students to learn to produce. And Brother Ricky will talk about strategies and the details of the curriculum, how these can be had. Next, please. Okay, this is a sample literary text. They should produce and publish in multimedia form or different forms for as long as they disseminate what they have created. Nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. We say wrong things. We do wrong things. We fall, we get up. We learn, we grow. We move on. We live, and we thank God for always giving us another chance. You may call it a free verse, but among our learners today, this is popular. where they don't have any respect, maybe that's a negative. When there's no meter, no rhyme, not a lot of figurative language, yet this is called free verse, an expression, an outpouring of their emotion. A literary text is more to the imaginative thought, a creative aspect of production. Or if this is easy, they may be able to produce this one. Maybe this is more literary than the free verse, but both are still literary. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am the thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints in snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. As you awake with morning's hush, I am the swift up-flinging rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the day transcending night. Do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. And before they are able to produce such, they should know what we mean by meter and rhyme, right? They should know what we mean by the figurative language used here, how metaphor, paradox, synecdoche, and other figures of speech are used to vividly evoke emotion through the literary work. Okay, so we know what a literary text expected to be constructed, produced, created by our learners. Now, what about informational texts? This is a sample of an informational text. Hopefully, they're able to produce key stage 3 of our learners. Colors have a marked effect on human emotions. Colors, whether on an artist's canvas or in the clothes a person wears, add intensity, variety, and appeal. However, this does not universally apply in the same way to every hue in the spectrum. Just as each color is different, so is the feeling it evokes. This idea is seen evident by black connected with mourning. Gray is often associated with a threat or premonition of more darkness to come. When these colors are mixed with the contrasts, they take on a mysterious, haunting aura. And you just continue reading quietly before I show the next slide. Then, okay, next slide. Purple has an earthly, regal nature. King's vestments are often a deep purple, and erotic items of apparel are quite often this shade. Wine, which affects one's mood to the more romantic lazy side, is often a deep purple red, and much of its enjoyment stems from the appreciation of its color. And you continue reading quietly. Now that one is a sample of an informational text, more of the different rhetorical patterns used by the writer to inform, to persuade, to describe, to entertain, could be the purposes of your informational texts. So this one, we can say that this informational text aims to inform. Are you done reading? We expect our students to write, produce, and publish this work, this kind of work. Next. Now, an example of an academic text. You may read it quietly. While I'm reading it on my cell phone. Okay. What can you say about this? This academic text is an abstract, more of a formal way used in academic exchanges, more like research, abstract, introduction of a research. So, for example, early school leaving in the basic education level is a challenge for educators in the Philippines. Its causes and prevention have long been the center of work of many researchers, but in most parts, with concentration only in the secondary level. The goal of this research is to provide the school members an evaluation of the implemented school initiated intervention SII in a public elementary school to identify parts of a learner's life where early warning signs of school leaving can be seen and to understand what works best in reducing the dropout rates in the school. Now you can feel how different this one is from an academic text. Okay. And you read and you read. Next slide. So, with this descriptive research following Dr. Ochave's ABCD model of evaluation, the findings revealed that, so you did not see this one in an academic text, in literary text, not in an informational text, but this is the nature of academic text. The findings revealed that both the school and the community have the capacity to make this program more innovative and responsive in keeping learners in school. The overall significance of this research is that it informs the school members about the program's aspect that bear the most value in those areas with less impact, and so on. Next, finally, the last kind of text. Okay, I did not provide example anymore. I said this is an explanation what a transactional text is. As the name suggests, it's to transact, to get something from someone. This is to get something done, to convey an information, exchange goods, services, or ideas. Example of these are business letters, correspondence, when you try to request or provide information, job application, resume, or making a complaint. Sorry for that, misspelled. So these are the kinds of texts we expect our learners to produce in Key Stage 3. We shall enable them so that text composing and publishing becomes a part of their life later on after 10, 12 years. After 10 years of education, they should be writers, producing texts and publishing them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying those important concepts. There will be more, actually. So, Dr. Ruth and everyone else in the room, please allow me now to introduce our next resource person, Brother Roderick Motril Aguirre, Academic and Literacy Director of John Paul Academy of Business and Arts Incorporated and a DepEd consultant. Brother Ricky Aguirre is a dedicated education professional with extensive experience in teaching, reading and literacy program development, curriculum development, and consultancy. He served as a college professor at Philippine Normal University from 2004 to 2009, focusing on module development, research, and extension programs. He later became an education consultant for ACLAT at Dunong Publishing, contextualizing instructional materials from Singapore for the Philippine setting. In 2010, he joined the K-12 Secretariat, contributing to the Department of Education's K-12 program development as a junior curriculum consultant and writer for language arts and universal kindergarten. In 2014, he worked with USAID through RTI Field Ed data to contextualize early grade reading and mathematics assessments in Waray-Waray, and later assisted DepEd in developing national entry and exit assessments for the campus journalism program. Concurrently, he served as a curriculum consultant for the Sisters of Mary Schools Philippines, where he's also a part of the community as a professional brother under the congregation's Confraternity of the Virgin of the Poor. From 2022 to 2024, Brother Ricky once again collaborated with DepEd in revising the K-10 language arts curricula, contributing to the development of the National Reading Program and the initial designs for the revised Arabic language and Islamic values education, or ALIVE curriculum, based on the general shaping paper of the Matatag curriculum. He also spearheaded instructional materials development in DepEd Region 1. Please help me welcome Brother Ricky Aguirre. Brother Ricky?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Apologies for being, but I think I'm having difficulty turning off a video. Something happened in my laptop, but I think this will not be an hindrance for me to concretize what Dr. Ruth Gutierrez presented on the conceptual frameworks and the featured text types in junior high school or Key Stage 3. Let me share with you my PowerPoint presentation, if I may be allowed to manually present my PowerPoint presentation. Am I audible? Could I ask
Yes,
for a thumbs
brother,
up?
we can hear you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right. So once again, good morning, dear participants, our language teachers in the field. Dr. Che, good morning.
Good morning, Brother Ricky. Are you sharing your own slides, or do you want me to
Um,
do it from my end?
It's okay. It's okay. I think I can.
Okay. All
So in
right.
my own pace, I guess. All right. So since this is the third webinar, I don't want to say it's the last, but this is the culminating webinar for this series. And I would like to recall again from the beginning so that we could see the totality and the holistic development of the language arts in the revised K-10 program, so that we will have a more comprehensive understanding as I relate this to pedagogy and to assessment. It was explained in webinar 1 that the language arts curriculum is based on the 3 big ideas. This was presented to us by Ms. Ayat Ferriols, and that we center on our conceptual framework is centered on 3 big ideas. We have the literacy, we have the language, and we have the texts. And there is a changing foci of or focus of these big ideas from one key stage to another. And I think Ma'am Ruth Gutierrez already just reiterated that in Key Stage 1, the focus is on literacy development with the help of, through the vehicle of language and text, because literacy cannot operate or cannot be acquired in a vacuum. It has through a medium, the channel, which is the language, and a shape or context via the text. And that's clear. And in the curriculum, it is stated there a specific base form of text on which students can acquire their literacy skills. Now, in Key Stage 2, there's a shift from, I think I have a PowerPoint of that. There we go. I'll include that. I think there is a shift. Okay, let me change that. Okay. There we go. There we go. Let me just reshare that. Okay, so in Key Stage 1, there's the focus of literacy and language arts, and the conceptual framework is focusing on the basic literacy skills, or the basic foundational skills, which is, being argued on the Congress as to what's the definition of basic literacy, and then what's critical and what's functional. All right, so our Key Stage 1 takes care of the basic foundational literacy skills. And once, assuming that our students acquired after exiting from grade 3, they proceed to Key Stage 2, entering grade 4, using that knowledge on mastery, on proficiency, on the literacy skills, students now can focus on applying their literacy skills towards the acquisition of the macro skills of the language, and that it is dichotomized in the language arts curriculum into 2 groups, the receptive skills and the productive skills. Hence, the focus now of Key Stage 2 is language learning through the foundations of literacy and, of course, of the text. Again, our premise here is that learning cannot take place without a vehicle. That would be language and literacy, and through the shape of the content through the text. And then as we proceed to now banking on the idea that our students have thoroughly acquired the foundational literary skills, built up on the critical and applied skills in Key Stage 2 with the acquisition of the 5 macro skills through the vehicle of text. Now in Key Stage 3, the focus now is that our students now have the necessary basic skills, applied skills, and critical skills to analyze different text types so that they could now compose and create and publish their own text. Now, what's good about the Key Stage 3 is that every quarter features a particular text type. And our students, focus on this text type so that they could produce the same text type. All right. Now, how do we concretize that? Let's, again, single out Key Stage 1 just to recall our webinar 2, that this is the language arts pedagogical flow based on the conceptual framework of Key Stage 1. We start with comprehension. Our perspective here is more of a holistic whole language approach where that, comprehension precedes, skills development. And that being said, that the list of the learning competencies may be organized. I'm not saying should be organized. It might be organized because there are a lot of because whole language is more of a philosophy than of an approach. There are other approaches that can realize the principles of whole language. And we have, of course, Leia, language experience approach. We have also Manhit's 4-pronged approach, and many more. So what's good about this conceptual framework is that it accommodates all possible approaches, relevant approaches and strategies, provided that they conform to the conceptual framework and the general shaping paper. So that's the idea of the revised K-12. So you cannot just choose any strategies that it's not aligned to the realization of the curriculum goals of the language arts. So say this is now the flow of instruction. We provide our students with a narrative text and informational text. Now, here's the innovation part there. The narrative text and informational text is controlled by the given context or theme in the quarter. In the CG of the revised K-10 mentions specifically what is the theme or context of the narrative or informational text for a particular quarter. A good example would be, say, in grade 2, first quarter is all about myself and my family. Therefore, the stories, the narrative text, and the informational text should be all about the family. Say, the narrative text you will be using as a teacher would be about family outing. Say a member of family having an outing, and the conflict is that a child did not follow the rules of the parents to stay with the group and she got lost, something like that. All right. Now, the informational text must be within the context, say how to behave during family outings. So the narrative text and informational texts have the same literacy resource. They have the same context, they have some paradigm, and one supports the other. Unlike before, what we do that we look for separate text, that the text for narrative text understanding and for informational text understanding are two different texts with different two contexts. It may have the same topic, but totally the context is out of this world, and that the child has difficulty connecting to the first text to the next. Now, why do we want in Key Stage 1 this type of pedagogical approach? So that the high frequency and the low frequency featured high frequency words and the featured low frequency words. When we say low frequency words, these are technical terms, content words, jargon that are featured in the literacy texts, the narrative and the informational text. That therefore, that the high frequency words that we're going to feature in the learning process is taken from the text you provided. Now, previously in the old curriculum, what we do is that some of the words and some of the vocabulary that we want our students to acquire is separated from or disconnected from the text. So the students learn the skill but they do not learn the skill of vocabulary that contributes to literacy and reading and literacy, because the skills are taught in a compartmentalized way. Now, in the design of the revised K-10, one leads to the other, one is connected to the other. Hence, it's important that the teachers choose really good texts that contain all of the elements, the skills of, foundational skills. Now, say it is difficult to look for texts that are, complementary of each other and contains all of the skills you want them: vocabulary skills, phonological skills, grammar skills, and composing, basis for the composing or responding to the text. Now, the teachers could select a selection or a text, and then they can modify that and improve it in such a way that it contains the focus vocabulary, and then the focus phonological, those sounds, and the manner and point of articulation for the phonics, and of course as a model for them to respond to, so that they could use the words they learned and the sounds they learned. So the tricky part here is that the teacher may not necessarily have to create their own text, but they can use familiar text like Aesop's fables and so on and so forth. But because they're called literacy texts, we say literacy texts, they are controlled texts in such a way that it contains all the literacy foundational skills we want our students to acquire given the text we have provided them. So therefore, once a teacher provided our students with the words high frequency, low frequency, taken from the narrative text and or the informational text, now the teachers can teach the sounds, how the sounds behave in the words featured in the words you have provided for them in the vocabulary development part, again taken from the comprehensive part. So meaning one is connected to the other. You cannot use words in the decoding and phonological part that is not connected to the comprehension, the text that you asked students to comprehend, and the words that you have presented in the vocabulary development. That's high frequency and low frequency. Now, what's the good thing about this design for Key Stage 1 is that's the word study. Word study means the word patterns, decodable word patterns like VC, CVC pattern, CVC silent D pattern. Again, all of these are taken from the vocabulary development. Say, once our students have already mastered how to decode and how to become fluent on the given focus words in your vocabulary activity, which were taken from your text during the comprehending, analyzing text. Now your students can now use the words that they have acquired, the text pattern that they have acquired, to respond to the text. The reader's response could be controlled, meaning which only areas they would like, which questions like, which character do you like most? Why? So use the words to respond to these questions. Or students could create sentences to describe some pictures of the showing the events in the stories. So in Key Stage 1, we do not necessarily require our students to compose a full text, but we want our students to extend their learning towards composing and creating, because if we only end up to decoding, that's only reading. Remember, reading and literacy. So when we say reading and literacy, we want our students to from comprehending to producing, and this is what we want for Key Stage 1. Now, that's an example. Say the story that I will choose would be The Little Red Hen for the narrative text. And since I know that the regional text, the text does not contain the words that I want to focus on, like the high frequency words or the low frequency words, or basically the high frequency words, there are high frequency words in the story. So I'll just, I will just get the 10 or 15 high frequency words from the story, and that will be my feature. But before I do the vocabulary, I will first ensure that I will teach my students first comprehension skills of this text. Okay, banking on our conceptual framework for Key Stage 1, it's important that the students comprehend first the featured text or literacy text before you proceed to the teaching of the skills, because there's no point, students cannot make meaning or find meaning in learning the decoding skills, the vocabulary skills, if it is not connected to the bigger picture, which is to comprehend the text. Now, the Little Red Riding Hood control comes to literary text. We control some of the words should contain the featured low frequency words. And we teach them like the basic foundations of the story or a narrative text, the conflict, the problem, the story, the characters, the major, the protagonist, antagonist, and so on and so forth. Whichever is featured in the lesson plan based on the scope and sequence. So yun po yung ating i-feature dito. Sorry to trans language. Now, given that the idea is that the teacher already created the activity and thoroughly ensured that students comprehended the featured story, The Little Red Hen, the teacher could now add another, the teacher could now proceed to vocabulary. The teacher could now help students to focus more, that they have now understood the text. Now the teacher could now let the students focus more on the finer elements of the text, which would be the high frequency words. And next would be the low frequency words. And this becomes drills and all, so that students could focus more on the three elements of the vocabulary, and that's pronunciation, spelling, and meaning. And meaning and context. That's the meaning based on how it's used in the selection you have provided. In this case, that's the Little Red. Now, again, banking on the ID teacher has ensured that the students have paid attention to the featured words in terms of how they are pronounced, how they are spelled, and how to get the meaning in context given the text. The teacher now can proceed to decoding the words, the featured words, not just decoding words that are separated from or compartmentalized from the text, but they're now going to proceed to decoding the words that were featured in the vocabulary development activity. Now the teacher could now focus on phonological awareness. It could be the initial sounds depending on the featured learning competency, or it could be the final, or it could be both initial and final or medial, and then focus on the phonics, or how the letters are sounded off. And then finally, what is the pattern of the featured words. Now that's decoding and fluency. And finally, once students know how to decode the featured words, now students can respond to the text, to the text earlier read, and provide, use the words that they have learned in simple sentences. That's how the flow of Key Stage 1, given the kind of conceptual framework that we have. Now, how do we now proceed from that? Now, knowing again that our language arts conceptual framework is seen as a journey from literacy development to language development to text creation, composing skills development in Key Stage 2. We can now say by Key Stage 2, they are now literate again, assuming that our students exiting from grade 3 and being promoted to grade 4 have mastered all the foundationals of literary skills with the vehicle of language and text. This is now our interpretation of the pedagogical flow for Key Stage 2, given its conceptual framework. We start with the receptive skill. Remember, the study here is that if you start with the receptive skill, it must be leading towards the productive skills, or you can start with a productive skill leading to the receptive skill. So what's good about this design is that the teacher could, make combinations of this group of macro skills of the language. Now, how you decide which comes first, productive skills or receptive skills, would be based on the achievement of the students. If the students are not yet that well literate, you can probably start with the receptive skills moving to productive skills. But if you have a group of students who have mastered the literacy skills, you can start with the productive skills, like, given the text, they can, create your response to it. And then later on, they can, proceed to receptive skills. One or the other, the teacher in the Key Stage 2, that's 4, 5, 6, could create combinations of the receptive and expressive skills depending on the profile of their students. Again, depending on the profile or literacy profile of your students. And that's why K-10 language arts is very flexible. Flexible in a sense that the teacher could manipulate, could innovate the conceptual framework in your pedagogical approach in your assessment, that it conforms and addresses the needs of your learners. Now, say that I want to start with listening receptive skills, moving to receptive skills. I would have the flow listening and reading, and then speaking and writing towards viewing and representing. And I would like to focus more in listening and reading based on the CGs of their comprehending literary text and narrative verse. I would focus on the narrative verse. I will extract from the CG that there are two narratives, types of narratives that should be mastered in Key Stage 2, and that would be narrative verse and narrative prose. So I will start with the narrative verse because I would say that in kinder to grade 3, they have thoroughly been taught narrative verses. All right. So in speaking and writing, so here it should be that the listening, like Key Stage 1, there should be integrity of text or unity of text. That whatever text you provide them, when I say text, Dr. Ruth Gutierrez already defined to you and explained to you when we talk about text, we're talking about all modalities and media of text. So it could be oral, written, multimodal, multimedia. And I think you know what I mean when I say text, not just print. It's not reading text. It's not just reading text, but all types of text. They say, when we talk about, say, one text, the teacher could, the first delivery of the text here, of the literacy text or the instructional text, the teacher reads aloud the selection to the students because the students should be listening to it. All right. And then after listening to it, the teacher allows students to go silent reading or oral reading the text that they have heard. Right? Why are we doing that? Because in the CG, listening and reading skills, as literacy in listening and reading skills have the same composite skills. Identifying the story grammar in listening text or reading text are the same. The modality will just change. But we want our students to acquire and learn that these set skills in listening and reading are basically the same. Now, the same text will be used in the next activity or round of activities for speaking and writing. So whatever text you use in listening and reading, the narrative text, would be the same thing for speaking and writing, only this time that the text will be used, understood, comprehended in the macro skill speaking and writing. Sir, why are we still banking on literacy? Remember that our students have already acquired literacy foundational skills in Key Stage 1, and that we will be using their literacy skills as a tool to acquire the macro skills of the language. All right? It cannot be one over the other or the absence of one, that once we're done with literacy in Key Stage 1, literacy is out of the picture. No. Dr. Gutierrez explained a while ago that it is shifting. When we shift focus, meaning all other elements of the big ideas will still be there, supporting what is in the focus of the key stage. So the same text will be used for students to compose appropriate sentences for clarity and coherence. So of the same text, not similar text. Now, the same text will be used towards the activity, another set of round of activities towards viewing and representing. Create visual text drawn from visual elements learned from the text. They could represent it via, say, still pictures or caricature or drawings. It could be perhaps, scribbles and all. Right. Why are we in this key stage 2, banking on one text? Because all of these macro skills are applied in one communicative task. To read a narrative text or to read or understand informational text. And an informational text, a narrative text, I think Ma'am Gutierrez already provided thorough examples of these two text types, could be delivered in different modalities, right? In terms of media, that could be how it is delivered. That's the medium, that's why it's media. But that's why she mentioned not all multimedia texts are all multimodal. She's correct in that. But she's also correct when she mentioned that not all multimodal texts are multimedia, because it's the use of media technology or other medium of delivery of the text. All right, so are we clear? Let's now give an example. Say the story you're using is Dory and the Real True Fan. Now you can observe that the example that I provided you in Key Stage 1 is more of fable, because in the curriculum it mentions that the type of text would be fable, myths, fairy tales, and so on and so forth. More fantastic in its genre, while as we move on to Key Stage 2, it becomes more fiction and non-fiction. I think it's more of fiction towards non-fiction. Now, say in this case, Dory and the Real True Friend, this is the featured text for, say, this lesson. The flow would be, say, listening and reading. The teacher will read the selection to the students first. And when we say listening, it shouldn't pure listening. The modality must be there. All right? It must be preserved. So kung listening po, sorry to shift, I think I'm okay to trans-language, Doc Shena. So pag sinabi po nating listening, we're talking about the teacher reading aloud selection to the students, and the students are listening to the text. Now, say the teacher has 4 sections in a day and will deliver the lesson for 4 times, right? And she might have problems with her voice as she progresses in the day. So what we can do is that we can suggest is that you can record. Since it's listening, you can record your narrative or the reading aloud of the selection and play it, so that you can focus more on the behavior of the students, whether they're actually listening to the text. And remember, the focus here is the macro skill that they already have. They already have acquired the literacy skills in the Key Stage 1, and therefore we need to ensure that the students are applying their literacy skills towards the acquisition of their acquisition of the skills of the macro skills in the language. Now, after listening, you ask, literacy questions like, what is the selection about? What is there a problem in the story that you've heard? Who do you think is facing the problem? So on so forth. Okay, I think let's find out if you're correct with your answers. You are going to verify your answers are correct. Here is a printed text of the story you heard, and let's look at and verify. Okay, so babasahin the same text. Babasahin, narinig nila, nabasa nila, same text, and then apply the literacy text. And then, it's easier to comprehend if it's print. But then again, the most neglected skill of all, macro skill of all, is listening. According to research, again, done by Australian Aid, teachers in the Philippines gloss over listening, or when they not necessarily gloss over, but they combine it with reading, with emphasis on reading, then again, marginalizing listening skills development. All right. Is the pace okay? Okay, the pace is okay. Now, once you have taken care of the same text, integrity of text again, in listening and reading, we have exposed our students to the featured skills of literacy in listening and reading. We now can proceed to speaking and viewing, talking about the text. Now, it's the same text that you use in listening and reading activity. Now they're going to compose appropriate sentences orally or written about the text heard and read. It cannot be another text, all right? Remember, again, what we want our students to learn is that in the current society that we have now, we are faced with multimodal and multimedia text, that all our macro skills are being used in one communicative situation. Like watching a telenovela or a K-pop, it demands most 3 or 4, if not all, of the macro skills, right? So say we are done with speaking and writing of the text, responding to it, developing the speaking and writing text of the same text. Now students can proceed to, or the teacher can now proceed to, helping teachers to look at, say, if it's a picture book or a story that is supported by visuals, we can now ask our students, do the visuals in the selection or in the narrative support the. If you were the artist, how could you modify, knowing now that the aim of the visuals is to support the meaning of the text? How would you now improve that? So viewing and representing. So representing is also using the visual elements, okay, all right, that they have learned, of course, you still have to give input in all of these elements, all right? And you will ask students to apply now what they have learned. If your feature is that you're going to focus on the lines, say your lesson for that day would be meanings of lines. You can ask students, the student here is looking to the left. Is the line of the eye moving towards the left direction? So you can analyze, again, not a different text, but the same text, a multimodal text that you use in listening, listening and reading activity, speaking and writing activity, viewing and representing. Now, what's the implication here? Now, the CG that you have perused over and you've been, you've looked into is a mere listing of learning competencies under a domain or subdomain with LC heads. Now, given this kind of pedagogical flow, you are now going to create a scope and sequence that you are going to combine the learning competencies listed in the different domains or subdomains into this flow of lesson, because this is the conceptual framework. Now, on that note, people, the way you teach must be the same as you assess, meaning remember that instruction and assessment are two facets of the same coin. So whatever you teach, how you combine the learning competencies must be the same way you are going to test. Therefore, if you had listening activity, therefore there should be listening test. And there's reading, there should be reading test. Now, pag sinabi natin listening, hindi babasahin ng teksto doon. Makikinig talaga sila. So sa listening po, test and listening activity, the behavior should be the same. It must be on the modality or the skill of listening. Similar to, now here's now the catch for speaking and writing. In terms of writing, pwedeng hindi siya ilagay sa test kundi sa performance task. Similar to viewing and representing, or pwede naman viewing and representing can be part of the second part of the test. Point here is that whatever you teach and how the flow of teaching in your assessment, the elements should also be assessed. Ang nakita ko po sa field kasi, some examples, I'm not gonna mention what school and what division or region I observed. Pagdating sa test, ang tinest lang ay reading. Wait lang, paano yung listening? Paano yung writing? Tinignan ko ang performance task. Ang performance task ay puro creation of visuals and posters. Nasaan yung speaking part? Now, kung ginawa po natin is that paggawa ka ng poster of a narrative text, at least ask them to present, like using gallery walk strategy for the performance task. But alas, it did not. So meaning you are teaching them, and yet in the minds of the students, why are you teaching me to speak and write, to listen and read, to view and represent? And yet when you assess me, you only assess me on the reading part, right? There we go. So therefore, the conceptual framework presented in the language arts curriculum is not only for instruction nor for planning, but it's also for assessment, because assessment and instruction are two facets of the same coin. Now, we now proceed to the last key stage. How do we concretize that? Let's again look at it in a holistic perspective. We now assume that our students have acquired foundational literacy skills. And we say literacy skills, it's not just ending in vocabulary, nor in, decoding and fluency. It must extend to responding and composing and writing simple sentences. Now, assuming again that they have mastered these foundational literacy skills, it is now continued on. Hindi siya nawawala, ha? It is still continued on in key stage 2, but the focus now is application of the foundational literacy skills towards the acquisitions of the skills in the macro skills, right? And again, in the key stage 2, the macro skills are clustered into two groups, the receptive and the productive skills, all right? Now, again, assuming that our students are already now critically literate and they have mastered the foundational skills to perform and use the macro skills of the language, students now can proceed to key stage 3. So those are the assumptions of who are our students as they enter the next key stage. Now, the main focus now of key stage 3, as again was reiterated to you and explained thoroughly to you by Dr. Gutierrez, is for them to be able to compose and create texts. All right. But before they do that, they need to analyze first and evaluate, different text in different modalities, right? If you want our students to be able to produce all of this multimodal text, they need to analyze a text in various modalities. Now again, same design po tayo sa Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 3. There must be integrity of text. Meaning, we should have one text. Hindi pwedeng ang pagkakaintindi ng bata pag nag-evaluate ka, nag-analyze ka, nag-evaluate ka ng listening text. Pagdating mo sa reading text, iba ng text. Pagdating sa visual text, iba na. So sa utak ng bata, ang iniisip niya dito, pag ganitong teksto, pang listening lang siya. Pag ganitong text type, pang reading lang siya. No. Say a journalistic text. A journalistic text could be all of this: listening, reading, and visual. That's why we have trimedia, right? Yes. Kuha po natin mga kapatid. All right. Now, analyzing and evaluating listening text requires proficiency in the language, basically the macro skills, and of course, foundational, critical, and applied literacy skills. Now, let's concretize this in a pedagogical flow. So we can have our students analyzing and evaluating listening text. Say in if I'm not mistaken, in grade 7, this is quarter 3, non-journalistic text, and then towards journalistic text. Or if this is grade 8, quarter 2 is journalistic text. All right. So here, I'm not looking at the chat. If you have questions, it will be entertained during our open forum, I guess. All right, so analyzing and evaluating text. Say we want our students to analyze literacy text focusing on verse, meaning verse is what we want our students to compose at the end of the quarter. So we ask our students to analyze. Therefore, how could they analyze if they do not have the basic literacy skills? Now, how could they evaluate whether the text, the verse is effective in delivering the message of the author? What do we use here? Your language skills, right? So it's the same text. It should be the same narrative verse, or it could be whatever verse. It could be a free verse. It could be a sonnet, all right? And then we proceed to listening, meaning analyzing, evaluating listening text. The teacher need to read first. And the students do not have a copy of it because, again, like in Key Stage 2, they need to listen to it. And after all, poems are meant to be read aloud and, appreciated through how it is read aloud to them, right? So the teacher proceeds to that and then analyze it, where after listening to the poem that I've read to you aloud, what did you hear certain words like that represent, say, natural sounds of the environment? Yes, good. Like that, let's say the cock-a-doodle-doo is an onomatopoeic words representing types of figurative language, right? Onomatopoeia. Yun, nag-analyze ka. Now, after presenting, evaluating, analyzing, evaluating the text, the listening text, the students now proceed to reading the same verse. And then visual representation of the text, and then proceeds to reading it. And then now that they know the structure, they could, recreate a similar text you provided them and used during the analysis and evaluation part. Say, let's concretize this in, say, quarter 2 of grade 8, which is writing journalistic text. So the teacher now first use a modality of presentation of, say, a journalistic text. He or she could use of the same, say, DILG, chief confirms local vaccination. She could look for a radio form of this text. Kasi listening man lang, right? And then analyze. And then next, visual text. It could be a presentation of, say, a caricature in a editorial caricature, cartooning, presenting that of the same news or feature. And then finally, providing the students the complete printed material. And then the students now, at the end, would create a multimodal text. After all, looking at the same text, presented in different modalities can now see how it could be presented, create their own journalistic text using the different modalities, hence creating a multimodal and then multimedia text. All right. Now, with that being said, the teachers could also recombine evaluation. It could be visual text first, could be then towards listening, towards reading, or it could be reading, and then from the reading text, they could look at singly on the visuals, and then later on listen to it in a trimedia perspective, and then creation. However, you're going to combine the first three parts, that's visual, analyzing, evaluating visual, listening, and reading text. That's okay. You can rearrange all of these three, but you always end towards composing and creating. So basically, this is how you're going to recreate and concretize the conceptual framework, and use the conceptual framework in such a way that you give life to the CG of the revised language arts curriculum. All right, with that, thank you very much. I tried my best to keep it short and simple so we can, have entertained questions. Doc check.
Thank you so much, Brother Ricky. That's very helpful. The concrete ideas and those concepts that our teachers can actually use for Key Stage 3. And I think before we proceed, let me check. We have about 10 minutes, maybe for the open forum, but maybe we can extend a bit for probably another 5 or 10 minutes. As we proceed, may I just show you this consent with those who are not around earlier. Please take note of this. Just a reminder. We also want to inform everyone that there will be no certificates to be issued for this webinar. Those who have been asking about the attendance, there's no attendance check. Okay, now let's proceed. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Ruth and Brother Ricky. Please join me now as we move on to the next part of the webinar, which is the panel discussion and open forum. It's going to be short because of how much time that's left for us to do this. But before we continue, I'd like us all to welcome another well-respected educator and scholar who will join us in this open forum, Miss Ayet Feryols, Supervising Education Program Specialist for English and Mother Tongue for the Department of Education. Miss Ayet Feryols is currently taking up Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Linguistics at the De La Salle University, Manila, where she also earned her Master of Arts degree in teaching the English language. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and graduated magna cum laude from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. She taught English in a number of universities and local higher education institutions, including the De La Salle University and the National University in Manila, and was involved in various research and training on language teaching before finally becoming a curriculum specialist in English for the Department of Education Central Office. As part of the Bureau of Curriculum Development, the nature of her work involves crafting the national curriculum framework, standards, and policies, and managing and providing technical assistance in various programs, such as capacity building of teachers and development of learners' materials. Currently, Ms. Feryols serves as the Supervising Education Program Specialist for English and Mother Tongue and the program lead for the NRP, or the National Reading Program. Ma'am Ayet?
Hello,
Would you
Doc
like to
Che.
greet
Thank
everyone?
you. Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our teachers and their active participation in this very important webinar. I always tell Doc Che and the whole ACELT family how grateful we are to have this platform, because this is the only means for us to reach out to you and tell you how we envision this curriculum guide to actually be delivered. So earlier on, napakasustansya po ng diskusyon ni na Ma'am Ruth and Brother Ricky on how we can actualize the Key Stage 3 curriculum in our respective classrooms. So if you have any questions regarding that, we are now free to answer your questions. I think they just need to key it in the chat box. Tama po ba, Doc Che?
Yes, yes, of
Okay.
course, if you have any questions. But while waiting for some of the questions to be posted in the chat box, maybe Ma'am Ayet, you have something to share in addition to what Dr. Ruth and Brother Ricky shared with us earlier.
Yes, Doc Che, if I can just very quickly share this slide. It's just one slide that's going to capture
Go ahead,
everything
please.
that we would like to share with you as part of BCD. So, right there, I hope that you're seeing my slide. Hindi ko na ini-slide
Yes, we
show
can
presentation.
see it now.
Okay, so this essentially captures all of the curriculum standards that you're going to find in the Matatag English curriculum. And this is going to be very important when we unpack the curriculum and when we deliver it in our respective classrooms. Now, one of the things that continues to baffle me as part of DepEd is how the divisions and the schools would create what we call budget of work when unpacking the curriculum guide. When in fact, the learning competencies that we have provided you is essentially the budget of work that you're looking for. Remember that one of the salient features of the Matatag English curriculum is that it does away with the rigidity of the 2016 version of the curriculum, wherein you have only one set of standards for a particular schedule. Halimbawa, sa isang linggo, ito lang po ang dapat ituro. We know that that isn't realistic. Ano po? And so we did away with that very rigid schedule, very rigid budget of work, and we provide you with simply a list of learning competencies that your students need to achieve or that your students need to be able to know and perform in order to help them achieve the curriculum standards that we have set. So right here in this slide, I'm going to just very quickly tell you how the curriculum should be unpacked. And so we start off with what we call the learning area standard. This is what we expect our learners to achieve at the end of that 10-year exposure to the curriculum. Once the curriculum is effectively delivered, then we can understand that the students will be able to achieve the learning area standard. So at the end of that 10-year program, this is what students should be able to do. And Ma'am Ruth and Brother Ricky has effectively summarized it into being literate, being communicatively competent, and being able to consume and produce different types of text while at the same time maintaining your identity and your culture. Now, this learning area standard, it's very broad because it captures a 10-year program. It's further subdivided into what we call the key stage standards. And this is what Ma'am Ruth and Brother Ricky have been talking about. In key stage 1, we have a standard that we have set for our grades 1 to 3 learners to achieve. In Key Stage 2, grades 4 to 6, and finally in Key Stage 3, that's grades 7 to 10. Now, you may think, okay, so a Key Stage standard is still a little bit broad. We're going to further break it down into what we call grade level standards. Now, this grade level standards is what we expect our learners to achieve at the end of an academic year or a school year. So, in 1 year, this is what we want our students to achieve. At the end of grade 7, ito po yung dapat nagagawa nila at ito yung dapat alam nila, and so on and so forth. Now, you will find that in every grade level, there are what we call content and performance standards that are expressed in every quarter. Okay, so we further break it down in order for you to help your learners achieve the grade level standard. So in every quarter 1, for example, of grade 7, you have a set of content and performance standards there. So this is what we want our students to achieve in 10 weeks. Okay, so I'm sure that that's a pretty doable, a workable timeline. In 10 weeks, the content and performance standards is what we want our learners to achieve. Now, if this is still not enough, then we have provided you with a set of what we now know as learning competencies. Ang malaking problema po sa ating kaguruan, una, they don't have access to the curriculum for whatever reason, or they do not read the curriculum guides. They simply wait for the resources to come to them. So I'd like for you to break that tradition, okay? To break that practice. Please actively look for the curriculum guide. It's in our website. Read the shaping paper, which will help you understand how to deliver the curriculum guide. And then read the curriculum guide itself. Kahit po yung standards lang natin, and then the grade level learning competencies that you are teaching. And you will find that all of these work together. In countries that we benchmark, Dokche, and to the rest of our participants, you will find that they don't include learning competencies. Dito lang po sa Pilipinas nagbibigay ng learning competencies because we want to provide as much as we can to the teachers. In other countries, they simply provide you with a curriculum standard, their expectations for a particular grade level. At the end of grade 7, for example, this is what we want our students to achieve. And then the schools would have the autonomy on how to reach these standards or achieve these standards. But we went one step further, and that is through the provision of what we call learning competencies. Ito pong learning competencies ang biniyak-biyak na curriculum standards. Okay? But one thing that Brother Ricky and Ma'am Ruth have been telling you is you don't take one learning competency and you make a lesson out of it. In the new English Matatag curriculum, we have what we call clustering of learning competencies. Naturally, all of these learning competencies will work together to form one whole lesson. If you're teaching, for example, dead stars in grade 7, then you will find that not just the receptive skills but also the productive skills are going to be tackled when you introduce a lesson in any grade level of our new Matatag curriculum. So you will find that learning competencies are naturally clustered together and these are very flexible. Ano pong ibig sabihin nun? If you think that the learning competency is too difficult for a child, then we unpack the learning competencies. We make it manageable to be learned. If it's not, and you feel that, oh, okay, this learning competency is no longer needed because I think my students already know this, then you can skip it. Kasi ano pong mahalaga? At the end of the day, we in the Bureau of Curriculum Development, we're only concerned with one thing, and that is whether or not you achieve the curriculum standards. So at the end of the quarter, did you achieve the content and performance standards? At the end of a grade level, did you achieve the grade level standards? At the end of the key stage, did you achieve the standards? And at the end of this program, did you achieve the standards? Yun lang po ang mahalaga sa amin. And how you do that, how you deliver the curriculum, how you differentiate instruction, how you unpack, how you cluster, it all comes down to you and how well you know your learners. That's the reminder that I would like to share, especially because this is the last of a three-leg webinar series. Napakahalaga po that we have an understanding of the curriculum standards and how they work together. Gone are the days that we are working in silos. Okay? Pag grade 1 teacher ka, grade 1 lang ang pakialam mo. Hindi po. As a grade 1 teacher, for example, you are concerned with also achieving the key stage standards. And you're also part of achieving the learning area standards. And so all of the teachers need to work together in order to actualize these standards. So that's all that I will be sharing this morning, Doc Che. If we were given more time, I could have expounded on this. But right now, this is what you need to know, teachers. Ano po? No need for a budget of work. The learning competencies are already your budget of work. If you're asking about schedule, ano po yung uunahing ituro? That is answerable by how well you know your learners. Ano po bang kailangan nila? Ideally, we start with a needs analysis at the beginning of every school year. Ano ang kailangan ng mga bata sa klase mo? And so, ito yung mga learning competencies na ituturo mo. Do you feel that these learning competencies contribute to the attainment of the standards? If yes, then you teach it. If no, then you can forego it. At the end of the day, the standards are what matters most.
Thank you so much, Miss Ayat, for that. And I think we just needed to hear that from you, Miss Ayat. No, yes, we all wish that we had more time, especially that I see a lot of comments now and some questions in the chat box, but maybe we can have a part 2 of this one.
Yes.
Only for probably question and answer or something. Maybe we can take note of the questions. There's one here that I actually want us to consider before. Maybe we can accommodate 1 or 2 questions from the chat box. No, there's one here that I think is very important. Si Christian, he's asking, pwede po kaya gamitin ng students ang weekend just for literacy tasks supervised by teacher assistants kung hindi kaya ng teacher via online? May provision ba tayo ng ganyan from DepEd, Miss Ayat?
Right now, we have no explicit provision for teachers working during weekends. Ano po? Kasi we're very strict when it comes to providing teachers with the rest that they need. Kasi kailangan po talaga natin ng pahinga, no? Kahit teachers pa tayo. But if you feel that this is an initiative that you can work with your school, then that's something that of course we welcome. Kahit ano po na makakatulong sa ating mga bata, no? Meron nga po tayong mga summer programs. If you feel that it's feasible in your school that you do literacy tasks, then I think it's okay. These are the kinds of decisions that we enable our schools to do. So ito po yung mga desisyon na kahit hindi na po kayo magpaalam sa central office, ano, if it's a school initiative, then we welcome it, just as long as it contributes to our end goal, and that is the attainment of our curriculum standards. So this is doable, but again, we have to secure permission from the school, we have to secure permission from the division.
Division.
I'm not sure if kailangan pa natin i-elevate sa region, but definitely, even without the consent of the central office, kahit hindi na po ganun kataas ang pagpapaalamanan natin, I think this is something that is feasible. This is something that is doable.
If I may add on that, Ayat,
Go ahead, Brother Ricky.
yes, I agree with Ayat. There's no standing DO that says that you need to extend. In fact, the standing DOs would be respecting the rest days of our teachers. But I have been invited to regional what they call initiatives. They call initiative programs, so they get the budget from, say, a local government, from ABC Plus, and the region, spread out the budget to the division. This region 1, if I could share, this is done by Johnson. Di ba si Johnson yun? Johnson, they're doing that. And they did not seek the permission from the central office because they saw the needs of the learners, and therefore they looked creative ways to look for funding. Alam po natin na budget driven po ang DepEd. So kung wala sa budget yung Saturday, Sunday, kasi nga, to implement a program, you need budget for that. We have to be honest. But because this is the need of our learners, and they cannot, perform based on the assumptions that they should be performing in the key stage, we cannot just say, bahala na. You know what I mean? We cannot be nonchalant. Oh, nonchalant, Tagalog talaga, no? We cannot be indifferent. We cannot be indifferent to the needs of the learners and hope that, I could pass my student to the next grade level or the next key stage, and the set of teachers in the next key stage could do something about that. No. It becomes a compounded problem. Now, how you respond to it becomes now your initiative. It can be a regional initiative. Another one, there's one I have been invited to San Fernando, Division City of San Fernando. I go there every now and then. Yun nga lang, being again funded by the local government. Kasi ang superintendent, they saw the data from National Achievement Test, from ELNA. May mga data naman pinibigay ang central office. Ibinababa naman yan. Sinasampalin sa mga mukha nila. Joke. Ipinapakita yan. And alam po, teachers, please, alam naman po ng central office ang mga problema niyo. May data kayo niyan. The data will not, lie. Ibinababa naman yan sa regions and divisions, and this data will not lie. Again, ang problema natin sa bureaucratic system, it is a division who would initiate. Now, kunwari walang initiative ang region, walang initiative ang region, meron po tayong sinasabi na SBM, School-Based Management. You can do school-based initiative. May SBM po, may DO tayo on SPM under the BESRA Basic Education Sector Reform Agenda. Now, again, dahil nga kayo nag-initiate sa school ninyo, you'll have to seek permission from the division. Again, looking at the BESRA agenda, sa region kayo manghihingi. Bakit po? I-monitor kayo. Hindi pwedeng walang monitoring system. Right? Hindi pwedeng nag-implement kayo, pero hindi monitor. Hindi pwedeng something's happening within the division, yet the division people do not know what's happening. Right? So magsasubmit pa rin, gano'n pa rin, magsasubmit ka ng proposal, will be approved, mahangingin kung nasa ng budget, and so on and so forth. And this is where private and public and local government sectors, yung sinasabi nila ay synergy of efforts. It cannot be a one-man show. Literacy language is a difficult task. It takes a village to educate and make a student literate. From my friend, it's a statement from my friend Hillary Clinton. And that's about it.
Thank you so much, Brother Ricky. I really don't think we can accommodate the other questions. Maybe we can schedule another webinar just to answer these questions. We're going to take note of the questions that you've posted. To those of you who still have something in mind, please share through the chat box, and we will, again, schedule another webinar for these concerns. And we think that this is very important. Maybe 30-minute to an hour part 2 of webinar 3 of this series. Maybe we can find time to do that. So please write down and share your thoughts in the chat box so we can consider them.
Doc
Ms.
Che?
Ayet, you might want to say something.
Yes, Doc Che, if I may just add to that wonderful initiative, ano, and why it is especially important in Key Stage 3. If you take a look at Key Stage 3, ito po yung pinakamahirap. This is something that has never been done before in Philippine curricula, especially in the languages. Key Stage 2 is very similar to the 2016 version of our curriculum guide. Key Stage 1 is also a bit new, but it's something that is relatively easier compared to Key Stage 3. If you take a look at Key Stage 3 and you take a look at the Common European Framework of Reference standards, you will find that it is parallel to C2 level of proficiency. Ganun po kataas ang hinihingi at inaasahan ng Key Stage 3. So, if we want our learners to achieve this level of proficiency, and so we want our teachers to step up as well. Katulad po ng palagi kong sinasabi in any teacher training, it's not enough that the curriculum changes. The teachers would also have to change. They will have to unlearn certain things that are no longer contributive to the attainment of our standards. They will have to retool themselves. Lalo na po ngayon sa introduction nitong Key Stage 3 curriculum, which is very different and a little bit more difficult. It requires really a lot of content knowledge on the side of the teacher in order for this to be effectively delivered. And so, in the process of upskilling our teachers, elevating their standards, we're also trying to elevate the standards of our learners. And so, given all that, establishing all that, the importance of this key stage, especially because this is the terminal key stage at the end of the Matatag English program, we look forward to having another webinar that would only
Right.
address the questions of our
Yes.
teachers. Ngayong malinaw na what the curriculum is all
Mhm.
about. It's also clear how pedagogy should be done. I
Mhm.
think it's time that we answer the questions as well. Thank you, Doc Che.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ayet. And again, we see your requests. We see your comments in the chat box and we hear you. Okay, so we are going to schedule one only to answer the questions in relation to Key Stage 3, especially that, as already mentioned by Ma'am Ayet, this is something new, may be very unfamiliar to many of us. So we really need another round of conversations just to look at how we can really help in the implementation of effective implementation of the lessons or the plans for Key Stage 3. Okay, so with that, I'd like to say that we have to end here. But at this point, I'd like to acknowledge also, my partner in everything ACELT, Ms. Vicky Calderon, who is here, our admin officer. And I'd also like to acknowledge, since this is the last of the 3, pero may additional pa pala tayo because of your request, but the original 3 webinars in this series, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of more than 180 participants coming from Pangasinan, Tarlac, Dinagat Islands, Laguna, Bulacan, Lawag City, Cebu, Masbate, Zamboanga, Lucena City, Pampanga, Mindoro, Marinduque, Olongapo City, Quezon City, the rest of Metro Manila, South Cotabato, Bicol, Sultan Kudarat. These ones I gathered from the chat box. Also, meron pang mga humahabol, Romblon, Puerto Princesa. Sige po, we don't have enough time, pero we see that you took the time to be here. And that means that you are very committed in, again, making positive changes. Sabi nga ni Ma'am Ayat kanina, hindi lang yung curriculum, the teachers also need to change. So we're all here, we're all in this together, we'll help each other out. Okay? So please allow me now to award the certificates of appreciation to our esteemed speakers for helping us out. Sila talaga ang tumutulong sa atin in terms of addressing the needs for our key stages 1, 2, and 3. And this time for key stage 3, Particularly for Key Stage 3, we'd like to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Mary Ruth Gutierrez for sharing her invaluable insights for the webinar on teaching strategies for multilingual English language learners for Key Stage 3, given today, May 31, via Zoom. Signed by me. The same is given to Brother Ricky, Roderick Motril Aguirre, and of course, Ma'am Ayet Periols. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite everyone to the upcoming events of ACELT. Please also join us because we're going to have our 57th ACELT annual conference workshop on June 26, 27, and 28. I hope you can join us. We have our keynote speaker is from the University of Nottingham, Dr. Malakay, from the University of the Philippines,